plays a pretty significant role there. Major amount of expenditures there, $297,000, as you see on the first bullet, used for the items listed there. And then the funding, 90% federal, 5% state, 5% city. So most of that paid for not by the city. You can see the underlying costs of the airport were actually down this year. Library up to $139,000, up $5,500 this year. Some of the reasons for that listed in the second bullet. In the third bullet, you can see that the county contribution there is $32,000. 20,000 of LGA was allocated there, and 88,000 in property taxes. But library expenses have been up the last 3 years, just under $140,000. How did we do compared to budget? Beginning on page 20, you see that the general fund on page 20, every category was under budget this year. In total, general fund expenditures were under budget, $32,248, as shown in the third bullet. On slide 21, all your other funds, every other fund was under budget except for the capital improvement fund, which is the first fund, and generally most cities don't budget their capital improvement funds on an annual basis. They're generally budgeted on a project basis because they go over years, so it's a hard one to budget. Not unusual if you were going to budget that you might be over budget. While all the others are under budget. Now we get into reserves. We begin with the general fund, and I think we've been doing this long enough that we understand the comparison here is you're comparing your general fund unassigned reserve to your expenditures, the yellow being the reserve and the expenditures being the purple color. And we all know that after the flood in 2010, $200,000 went to the sewer, and we brought our fund balance down, and $166 went to the liquor, and brought our fund balance down to just $70,000, which represented just 11%, as you see in the first bullet. Fourth item down, we were down to 11%. State is in the 35 to 50% recommendation of the state auditor, and I think you have a policy in the 50 to 70% range. What you see in the last 3 years, because of the, we've had, actually revenues have been slightly over budget, and expenditures under budget in your general fund, and as a result, the general fund unassigned has come back up. We have not received the $200,000 from sewer, nor the $166 from liquor, yet you have been able to bring that fund balance back up to $240,000, or 35%, which is at the low end of where the state auditor recommends that you are. Now, the reason I emphasize this, I want to talk about the $200,000 that the sewer owes the general fund later. And I want to remind you that when we talk about it later, that $200,000 will not impact this. The $200,000 is not in the 240. When you do this analysis, you don't include in it advances that other funds owe you, because it's really not there, may not come. You don't want to consider that part of your reserve. So unassigned fund balance excludes advances to other funds. Okay, does that make sense? Let's move into some of these other funds. The fire department fund continues to, I guess my understanding is probably most of the equipment was replaced after the flood and hasn't had a need for equipment these years, and you can see really quite a dramatic increase in fund balance in your fire fund. The two different fire mill rate and general funds are now, as the second bullet shows, up to $729,000. And you can see the trend there on both is up, but the mill rate probably at a little faster rate than the general, but $730,000. Ambulance fund, same. We're putting money away for equipment, but up a little bit less. Remember that 245 is after $40,000 would put in a down payment for an ambulance this year. He would have $285,000. So $245,000 there at the end of the year after the $40,000 down payment. So again, increase in those fund balances. The airport fund balance is down. I believe the city's share of that project came out of fund balance this year. So just 5% on that project cost. Library, somewhat the same story. The restricted, of course, stays the same. It's in that 85,000 range. It's the unassigned that's been going up. You can see that we're in the 100,000 range in '09 and '10, and increased 40,000 in the last 3 or 4 years. So library fund balance is now at 140,000. That's the unassigned portion. It's 2 1/4 or 225,000 in total. Property taxes of 88 grand go into the library. Business fund loan recovery, zero balance. The reason I include this in here is just to reiterate what goes on with your business fund loan fund. There was 17.5 million went in here. When the cash comes in here, the city transfers it out to the EDA revolving loan fund immediately, and as a result, there's a zero fund balance every year at the end of the year. There are those loans receivable that you see on the second bullet on slide 28 of 9.3 million, but they're not included in the fund balance because they're not cash and not readily available cash. So, and many of them will be, much of it will be forgiven. So, zero balance on that fund. While on slide 29, you can see the fund balance growing, and of course that's growing because of collection of the business flood loans. On slide 28, the money came in and is transferred to the EDA revolving loan fund. And as the second bullet says, under an agreement with the state, these must be used for lending under your EDA or loan policy. So, what do the colors there mean? The yellow on the bottom is cash that's in this fund. The blue in the middle are receivables from area businesses, and the orange at the top is the 200,000 that you loaned to the electric fund this year under a revolving loan. Needs to be, since the center fund needs to be called in advance. But the electric fund will be repaying that. So significant amount of cash there as well as loans receivable. That total of all those different colors in 2014 is $2,110,000. That number pre-flood was about $27,000 you see in 2007. So we were running a $27,000 fund, it's now a $2.1 million fund. So remarkable change there. As far as your EDA fund, you know that on slide 30, that the settlement was taken out of this fund for the community center and motel, and you can see we're down to $157,995 in that fund. Community center fund, we did allocate 20,000 of LGA there. They got that negative down to 22,000, but we still have a negative fund balance. It was decreased this year, but small negative there. That will probably need to get addressed. Not a major amount like when we get to sewer, but the 22,000 is something that should probably be resolved at some point. TIF bonds. This TIF bond down to 65,000 on slide 33. Paid off. Paid off in 2015. So that TIF bond will be zero at the end of 2015. It has been paid off since year end. General obligation bonds. There's been a lot of activity here since the flood. The blue on the bottom are the 09s. Then the yellow is the 11s, and the 12s are reddish color, and then the new one this year, 1.3 million, is the new 2014 improvement bond. You're now at 5,575,000. You can see all the bonds being paid down as those parts of the graph get smaller and smaller. But a significant amount of improvements have been made. Obviously, if you've got 5,575,000 in GO bonds, the different bonds are listed on the first bullet. Revenue bonds on page 35, same story. Amounts spent there in your electric, water, and sewer funds. Up to, I think it was in 2012, that total of all those different bonds was $4,822,000. It is now $4,130,000, so we paid just about $700,000, just under $700,000 in principal off on those over the last 2 years. $425,000 is the principal this year. So you'd be down to 3.7. So you are servicing a large amount of revenue bond debt, and it is getting paid. So your enterprise funds are in pretty good shape at this point to be able to pay this debt, other than sewer, which we'll get to.